Hi everyone, and welcome to the second part of this series. To fully enjoy this, make sure you watch the first one on the failure of the mini iPhone, which kind of blew up my channel, so thank you so much for that, and welcome to all of the new subscribers. And now, enjoy the video. During the late 90s, Apple was nothing like the company people are accustomed to associating it with today. Company with the biggest market cap in history, valued at roughly $3 billion. The largest tech hardware maker in the world that is always leading the industry. No, in fact, during the 90s, they were the total opposite of that. They were really struggling and were on the brink of bankruptcy. They were hemorrhaging money and were only relying on, by that time, the archaic Apple II computer. That was the only product that sold somewhat decently. But then, Steve Jobs famously came back after 15 years of absence from the company and changed everything. His first new creation was the iMac, where I stood for internet connection, among other things. Even though for us today that seems like such an obvious thing for a computer to have. And that was only the first of I products that got introduced over the next decade, with each of them being insanely revolutionary in their respected categories. Only 3 years later, the original iPod was introduced, where we got the first glimpse into the Apple's walled garden, where an iPod worked seamlessly with an iMac, but with no other personal computer at all. And it was only in 2003 that Apple finally allowed iTunes for Windows, because the iPod sales grew so rapidly. Then of course, one of the most influential products of all time in 2007 was the iPhone. As you know, before it, every single phone was this confusing mess of buttons and very hard to learn software, or it was very primitive like the old Nokias. And then the touchscreen changed everything. But not a lot of people know that iPhone only came to be because Apple primarily wanted to focus on a tablet that would eventually replace the MacBook, as a part of their master plan to shrink the technology in size but give it more and more power. Tablets replaced laptops now that you can even professionally edit videos with Final Cut Pro. Phones replaced tablets, and smartwatches replaced the phones now that you can call people, text them, listen to music while you're working out, or whatever else. So the iPad was the last of those amazing products that got introduced during Steve Jobs' leadership, and that revolutionized personal computer, MP3 player, phone and tablet industries. So after achieving all that success, Steve Jobs was once asked how did he actually manage to save Apple from almost dying. And to that he said, "Some people say, give the customers what they want. But that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do." I think Henry Ford once said, "If I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse." People don't know what they want until you show it to them. That's why I never rely on market research. Our task is to read things that are not yet on the page. And I love this quote so much because it sums up everything a company needs in order to succeed. In today's climate where every industry is so saturated, only the most useful and original ideas thrive. And that's why I immediately fell in love with the mini iPhone. In a world where big phones dominated the market for years, Apple, the largest tech company, dared to do something different in order to fill this void that was being there. I was so tired of needing a 6.5-inch phone just to have flagship specs. So they made it, and as I explained in my previous video, the phone pretty much failed, and they decided to discontinue it after only 2 generations. There were a lot of reasons for it failing, from the price being too steep. The iPhone SE also launched the same year, battery life was very weak, but most of all, people just used their phones for way more things than they used to. And the larger display is just better if you want to stare at it for a longer time. So remember the Steve Jobs quote? Well, now, after 2 unsuccessful attempts of making a mini iPhone, Apple took a different approach. And with it, it just felt like they abandoned the whole Steve Jobs philosophy. And instead of reading in between the lines of the market, they did exactly what they thought the market wanted, which was just a way bigger phone. And notice how the emphasis is on thought, because just looking at the stats, Mini was the worst performing iPhone with only around 5% of the market share, while the 13 Pro Max was insanely popular, especially considering the price tag. So the thought process was probably something like, okay, so people want a bigger phone, so let's just make something that is as big as the Pro Max, but just make it more affordable, and it's surely gonna sell extremely well. But as we'll see, The problem was much more nuanced than that. So by the spring of 2022, it was already pretty much confirmed. The Mini was going away, and in its place, there was going to be a new Plus model. And what a difference that was compared to the Mini. Just by looking at them side by side, I mean, it's like David and Goliath. They had an identical back and front, the same two-camera system, same notch, same aluminum frame, but the size was almost twice as big. And that is certainly not where the similarities ended. Apple actually made zero effort on improving the regular 14 models over the 13. So apart from looking exactly the same, the specs also didn't change whatsoever. So the 14 as well as the 14 Plus remained on the 60Hz display, they didn't receive any camera improvements, and the biggest thing of all, this was the first iPhone ever that had the same chip as the one from the year before. Meanwhile, the Pro models got all the cool new features, like the 48 megapixel camera, the always-on display, the dynamic island, and an A16 chip. So only a couple of months later, we got the sales stats for the last quarter of 2022, and surprisingly, numbers again really didn't look good for the Plus model. It was selling slightly better than the Mini did, but only by a couple percent, and in its best month, it only managed to do around 11% of the total sales, which is okay compared to the Mini, but still nothing when you look at the 14 Pro Max that costs way more, but had around 35 to 40% of the market share consistently since launch. Now, there were a couple of different reasons for that. The first one we already went over, which is Apple putting zero effort on improving the regular 14 models, and instead focusing entirely on the Pro iPhones. But then there's also the price aspect. Apple has been steadily increasing the baseline iPhone price for years now. The 11 was $699, then the regular 12 was $130 more expensive, which is just insane. But they masked it very well with the introduction of the Mini, and not mentioning that you need to buy an iPhone with the carrier to be the advertised price. Then 2 years later, when they dropped the Mini and introduced the Plus, they stuck with $829 for the entry model, but went above that for the Plus and got to $930. $930 for a phone with the notch, 60Hz display, no telephoto camera, and a year-old chip. So for only $70 more, you could get the 14 Pro, that is a light years better phone, with way more functions like ProMotion, stainless steel finish, far better cameras, always on display, dynamic island, the list goes on. But even if you didn't want to spend anything extra, you still had the 13 Pro and Pro Max, which are essentially the same phone brain as the Plus, but also have way cooler features. So what did Apple and we learn from this whole thing? Yes, phones got progressively bigger over the years, because the phone's primary function changed with more and more media consumption, but there are still some very important things that people pay very close attention to apart from the size. And sure, these Pro features definitely played a role, but I think it's way more just the cool factor of owning the Pro iPhone. And when you get that close to the price of the Pro model, people are just gonna grab that one instead. So what if the 14 Plus wasn't a fail after all in the grand scheme of things, because it incentivized people to give even more money to Apple at the end? But even if it was, its failure is way more temporary than the Minis. The Minis at this point long gone, and the only hope that something similar will appear in the future is the upcoming SE4, which will even have the exact same size as the regular 6.1-inch iPhone, or it will be something smaller like 5.7 inches, which I'm really hoping for. But when it comes to the Plus model, there is no sign of Apple wanting to cancel it anytime soon. So we are just about to get a new one. And this 15 Plus is possibly going for a different trajectory than its predecessor, because it's getting way more upgrades this time around, like the dynamic island, a 48 megapixel wide camera that will also act as a 2x telephoto, and most importantly, for the first time ever, the price of the Pro models will increase for $100 or even $200. So it will now be way harder to upsell people. As we already saw, speaking strictly of the regular models, iPhone 11 was amazing. Then iPhone 12 was kind of a disappointment. Then iPhone 13 was also amazing. iPhone 14, one of the biggest disappointments for Apple for years. And now a regular 15 and 15 Plus are shaping up to be a very promising upgrade. So make sure you subscribe to see me talking about them and everything else that is coming out this fall. Thanks for watching.